Welcome everyone to the Gary Neville podcast, which comes to you over this long weekend in two parts. Tomorrow evening after the game at Everton, Gary will deal with all of the other issues in the Premier League, principally around the chase to be in the Champions League. But tonight we're going to deal with the race to be champions. We're at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Arsenal have taken a big stride in that race with a big win against their neighbours Tottenham. There was a lot of jeopardy around it, Gary, to start with. We know all the noise. Noise has been a pertinent word this week after what happened at Wolves. How did Arsenal deal with it?
Really well in the end. I think at half time they maybe look back at that first half and think, how are we in this position? 1-1, we're so dominant in the game. Tottenham had only had one touch in their box, and just little things. There was a Hincapié little mistake, there was a little Gabriel and Saliba one, and I think Timber made one with a little pass into midfield, and then Declan Rice goes and makes the ultimate one which gives the goal away. And you're thinking, you're causing your own problems here, and where's this coming from? Because these are the ones that have been the best defence in the league, the most reliable characters. They've been brilliant all season. David Raya makes the mistake on Wednesday night, so you're starting to think, is it becoming contagious, these little errors that are going to cost a team who are dominant in football matches? But if you do make individual errors in moments, then you're still going to cause yourself a problem. So, but in the end, it was really important what happened today, because look, it's too early really for that real title pressure. We're not quite in the home straight. It's 10 games to go, so there's no doubt games are, eroding fast. But I think, to be fair, this is going to get really hot when it gets into April, as we know. But you're now getting to a point where games really do count, and when you drop points, and Arsenal have been on a difficult run. So you're looking at them today and thinking, right, okay, we signalled out, or I did, David Raya before the game, because I think he's been absolutely incredible. I think everybody thinks he's been incredible. What a goalkeeper he's been this season and for the last couple of seasons for Arsenal. But you're thinking, he's had Thursday and Friday to think long and hard and listen to that noise about what happened on Wednesday night. And what is he going to do in this game? Is he just going to be a little bit more tentative? Is he going to be a little bit more wobbly, a little bit more shaky? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You look at his body language, the way in which he had authority, the way in which he came out and dominated his area and caught every single cross that came in, even ones that you thought he didn't really have to come for that one. We wouldn't have been having a go at him if he didn't do, but he came for ones that were brave. So I think it was really important for him today. To make sure he gets back to his sort of what would be mistake-free best, and in the end he makes something really special there, doesn't he, where he sort of reaches back. I mean, we sometimes slow these sort of what would be replays down, which is the right thing to do so everyone can see it at home, but it doesn't do it justice of the reactions of how, we know how quick goalkeepers are off the mark. They're like lightning, they really are. I think I might have said this story before, but the goalkeepers were always the quickest over 5 yards when we did the sprint test, because just the ability to get there quickly and just off the mark, and you could see that was brilliant with Raya at that end of the pitch, and then at the other end of the pitch. I think it was so important what Gyökeres did today. I like him as a centre forward in the sense that I like a centre forward who's imperfect, who's a bit rugged, who's a bit of a handful. I'd hate to play against him. Sticks his body in, sticks his backside in, doesn't necessarily do everything in the sort of more smooth or perfect way. And there's times this season where you've thought, is he a hit or is he a miss? Is he good or is he average? You're almost from week to week balancing a little bit about what this guy is. But if you could actually encapsulate and package up a performance of what you'd want from him, you got it out there today again in a really big game. I thought that from the very first few minutes he was running down the side. Sometimes he gets involved a little bit too much in battles and scraps and muscling with centre halves, but he made movements down the side. He was a little bit more elusive. I thought that he held it up and was quite clever at times. He was a nuisance. He did run the channels. He always works hard. I actually thought he looked leaner and fitter. I don't know how that happens, because obviously we've seen him a lot in the last few weeks, but I just thought he just looked a little bit more like he had legs and like he had a bit more power, rather than him looking a little bit sort of what would be heavy and ungainly and sort of it looking like he's running in treacle. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you watch him you think. And then today I thought he was really good, and then he gets his goals. The first one's a really good goal. Eze, I think, being up there alongside him, taking Dragerson away and taking a centre forward, just means that he gets a yard and he finishes. He misses his couple of chances in the first half, but he finishes in that second half, and then he gets his what would be almost like a glory moment at the end, where he can sort of go up there and celebrate to your heart's content. The second one, I said, don't celebrate too much. There's a job to do. Switch on. Declan Rice did that after the first goal, didn't he? If you remember, he's going to his teammates, switch on. That's definitely a switch on moment at 2-1. We're not making a mistake here. This is where we go and see it home, and Arsenal have really done that today. But it was a good day for David Raya, who's been brilliant all season. Gyökeres, who's not been brilliant all season, I thought it was his best moment of the season. Not just because he scored 2 in a game against the biggest rivals and had a wonderful celebration over there with the Arsenal fans, but because his general performance from start to finish was what you would expect from him. He needs to kick on from that because he set himself a level there today.
I wonder, this is a slightly mischievous question, I wonder whether it was nice for Arsenal to play here. You know, there was a lot of talk about Tottenham feeding on Arsenal's nerves, but obviously Arsenal's kind of tense performances, one or two of them have been in front of their own supporters who are feeling the history of these 22 years without the title and so on, and you didn't get the same sense of panic here at all, did you? Even when Tottenham did equalise?
No, I don't think you heard it, but the stadium announcer before the game, he did a massive impassioned speech and address to the crowd probably about 5 minutes before kickoff, where he said they're worried, they're nervous, you know what I mean, they don't want this type thing, and that was the sort of feeling in this ground. I mean, Tottenham fans, the ones I spoke to before the game, I always, when I'm coming up in the lift, say, what do you think today, just to get and they said, I think we'll get beat, you know what I mean. So I think the reality was there, that they thought they could get beat, but the bit of hope that I think they had was probably Wolves. And they were probably thinking, if we can make them nervous, if they show a little bit of anxiety through the fact they're in a title race, and there's been a lot of talk about wobbling in the last few days, then you know they could potentially do something in this match. But it didn't emerge, and I think playing here, I think, look, they got a grip of the game early, to be fair to them. By the way, what about the nonsense with the sound issues with the referees? That needs to stop, by the way. I don't know if someone listens from, you know, PGMOL or Premier League, but that is absolutely rubbish, that we've got to stop a game for how long today? 11 minutes, 12 minutes maybe? 5-6 in the first half, and then before half time, before the second half started, another 5-6. But, you know, today, big question marks of Arsenal at the start of the game. They handled it, they played well, they dominated the first 20 minutes. They then go and get the goal, really good. And then they have the one sort of mistake in the game, the one blip is when obviously they let Tottenham back in it within 30 seconds, so you're thinking, oh, okay. So there's another big question coming at half-time when they come out for the second half, but they've answered it. The big question at 2-1 then is, can they go and kill the game off? Are they going to let Tottenham back into it? And they've answered that. So there's a number of questions throughout this match that Arsenal have answered. Can they score goals? They've done everything right today. So playing here was perfect for them. We've seen Tottenham 2 or 3 times here in the last couple of months, and they've been, I mean, they came back against Manchester City, but they were hopeless in the first half, weren't they? And they have got so many injuries, but I think when teams have so many injuries, you can look at it one of two ways. If they're freak injuries that just happen all at once, then you can maybe have some sympathy. But when you've got persistent and constant injuries in large numbers over 2 seasons, you've got to start to ask a bigger question. It's not unlucky anymore. You can't, you know, the recruitment has got to be questioned. Are they resilient? Are they robust enough? The training programme's got to be questioned. What are they doing out on the training pitch? The grass, the pitches have got to be questioned. Now, you can't believe that that's the case because these Deso pitches are everywhere. But, you know, the medical department are going to start to get put under pressure. The sports science, you know, we all talk about sports science and having massages and sports science and but these players are getting injured on a constant basis. So what is it? It's one of those 3-4 things that we're mentioning, but Tottenham not having their best players out on the pitch not only damaged Ange Postecoglou last season, it's damaged Thomas Frank this season. If they had Maddison out there, Kulusevski out there, all the other players that they've got missing, you know, Romero's obviously missing through a different reason today. I mean, there's that many of them missing. Bentancur's missing. There's 12 of them, isn't there? Or 11 of them. Yeah,
Danso, Maddison, Udogie, Bergvall, Romero, as you
Porro.
said. Yeah, Kulusevski, Porro, Odegaard, Bentancur, Ben Davis.
Yeah.
And actually, as I mentioned in the commentary, the second goalkeeper's missing as well today.
So, I mean, look, if Tottenham have those players available, then they're not going to be that easy to beat. They're going to be a far better team in every sense. But they're in trouble. Yeah. Tottenham are in trouble. I mean, last season, they skirted with it a little bit, relegation. There was a little bit of a sort of, but they were always sort of clear of it, and they were managing the sort of Europa League games and just getting enough points, and you never really felt they were going to go down. This season, they've got some real work to do, and they better do it quickly, by the way, because I watch West Ham and I watch Nottingham Forest, and they've got something about them that you think they're going to pick up points. So it's not going to be a case that Tottenham can just sit there and think that this is just going to happen. They're going to have to work bloody hard to get out of this mess, and it's unthinkable. I mean, you're in this stadium. I've been to their training ground when I was a coach for England. We used to train there a lot, and you just can't think this amazing, great football club. But on the football side of it, they've under-delivered for a number of years. They've never found the right sort of what would be formula to get it right, and this is the second season on the trot that they're in this type of position. So it's not a fluke anymore. This is a pattern of what you are, and it would be the shock of the century, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be absolutely mind-blowing to think that they could disappear out of this league. But I don't think they will.
No.
I don't think they will. They've shown an attitude in this game today for 55, 60 minutes. And even to be fair, in the last half an hour, they were just beaten in the end by a better team. But they have shown a little bit of ruggedness in this game that you need, and they will need. We've just got to make sure that if they're playing a team here that doesn't get the crowd up as much and doesn't get these players up as much, that they show that same ruggedness. Because it's easy to show it sometimes in the North London derby where you have to, you're almost forced to in the manager's first game. But when the cameras are off you and they're playing against a team in mid-table next week and the week after, and maybe it's a little bit less motivation, maybe it's a little bit less fire because of the fact of what this fixture is, are they going to be as rugged, as dogged, and as hard-working and as pressurising? Because they're going to need to be, because if you're just 2, 3, 4% off it in this league, you will get done.
Yeah, well, that is going to be something clearly to watch. They were relegated, by the way, in 1977, Tottenham, a team that had Pat Jennings in goal, Glenn Hoddle in midfield, Steve Perryman, some Tottenham greats went down. But anyway, that's a different era. Back to the Premier League title race. A lot of the talk was on whether Arsenal might collapse to some extent, psychologically, after what happened at Wolves. That didn't happen. So I suppose the onus is back now on Manchester City. What did you make of them last night?
I mean, I was coming back from watching Salford at Cheltenham, so I got, I think, in 15 minutes late, but watched the game. I mean, City are dangerous. They're dangerous with the fact they've got Marmoush, they've got Haaland, they've got Cherki, they've got Semenyo, they've got Foden. So they're really dangerous. If they can keep the centre-backs fit, then they've got a chance. The goalkeeper's good, the manager is exceptional. The celebrations at the end from Haaland and from Pep Guardiola were meaningful, I felt. They were sending a message. That was mind games at play. Pep Guardiola will say it's not, but it is. Every time you speak now for the next 2 months, every time you do something on a pitch, it's going to be transmitting to the opposition team. That's vulnerabilities, that's strength, whatever it is, celebrations, sometimes over celebrations. So what Arsenal had to cope with today, which I've mentioned before, and the questions that they've had to answer, I missed one of them out, and that was the fact that Pep Guardiola and Erling Haaland, probably the two most significant figures in the Premier League on and off the pitch, have sent a message last night after that game that we're coming for you and we're going to be breathing down your neck. Arsenal have withstood that today, and they're going to have to withstand that for another 6 to 8 weeks. Arsenal were never going to get this Premier League title handed to them on a plate. It doesn't work like that, particularly when you're going for your first one. If you're winning 3, 4 and 5 and 6, you can sometimes win by 10, 15 points and you can take it in your stride. That's very, very rare. It's a struggle. It's a battle. It's a fight. And this City team, to be fair, that you're watching now, aren't quite the team that were going through those fights with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool for 3 or 4 years. But there's still some characters in that dressing room who understand it and know it, particularly the manager. So they're going to be so dangerous. I think Arsenal will get there, but it doesn't surprise me that they are making mistakes and that City are coming back at them. But I think they will just get there. I think they'll get there and just almost crawl over the line maybe in the end. It's going to be a massive struggle, I feel. I don't think it's going to be easy. And that game is going to be monumental at the Etihad.
How much, as a matter of interest, because obviously we're all looking at that, how much does the League Cup final play into the psychology of it all? Or is that, can you box that off?
I think you can box that off. I mean, look, it depends how you lose. It depends how the game goes and how you lose. Look, if it's a tight game and you lose on penalties, I think you can box it off. But if you get absolutely battered in that game, I mean, if City were to go and beat Arsenal 3 or 4-0 in that game, that would send a big message, and vice versa if Arsenal were to go and beat City. But I have thought for a number of years, when Arsenal have been going for this title, that they're going to have to go and win at the Etihad. I've just thought it for a number of years. Go and win. That's the only real way. I mean, the Carabao Cup final is a chance to send a message because you're playing directly against them and you can cause them some real pain by taking a medal from round the necks. But what you can do is go and beat them at their own place. I always think when Arsenal came and won titles, the Overmars goal in '98, the Viltord goal, was it? 2002, 2001, 01.
2 maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they're killer. They're goals that still make me shiver. They're goals that make me shiver. I was playing in the game against Overmars, and then the Viltord one, I was actually in the stand, I was injured. But they make you shiver because they silence a city. They don't just silence a ground. You know, you go into Manchester City on that day and you're absolutely going to silence them and rock them to the core if you win. But on the other hand, if City go and beat you up like they did 2 or 3 years ago, when Arsenal had those problems defensively, I think towards the end when Saliba was injured, again, it rocks you the other way. So that's That's in the far distance. It's not to start thinking about that tonight, but we know it's coming. The Arsenal fans know it's coming. The City fans know it's coming. And it's about jostling for position and making sure, maybe if you're Mikel Arteta, who's doing his interview here now on this screen, if you can just have a cushion going into that game, it gives him a bit of comfort. But my feeling is, I don't do predictions, in fact I'm pretty poor at them. My feeling is that this is the moment this year where Arsenal might be a couple of points in front, they might be near to level, might be 3 points in front. I think they'll go and win at City. I think they'll go and win. And I think that'll be where you really do recognise that they are champions. But that's a wild prediction about a game that's coming in 5 or 6 weeks, and by then a lot will have happened. But that's how I see this season going. I've seen it going like I've thought it would go like that for quite a while. I thought City might come back at them, may even go past them momentarily. You mentioned during this game they could have gone past them next Saturday night if they beat Leeds away. But City will drop points. They're not quite right themselves. You asked me about the game last night against Newcastle. They weren't hanging on in there at the end, but it was a little bit close for comfort for them, and they're not quite as dominant as they were. I mean, they're not as dominant as they were. Forget the quite. They're not as dominant as they were. They're not as controlling as they were. They're not as exceptional as they were. But they're still very, very dangerous. And I think that Semenyo, Marmoush and Haaland up front, they could cause real problems for every team.
What's the reality in the dressing rooms? You say you've played in those sorts of games. Are they going to gradually, as no doubt we will, become obsessed with that game on April the 18th, 19th? Is there a danger that one game could become too important in the heads of players?
I think what Pep Guardiola will have liked about, forget the fact that they dropped points at Wolves, he'll have loved that. But what he'll have liked about this weekend and next weekend is that they get the ability to go and put pressure and get close. That's the real sort of. I used to think if you can get your points on the board and then sit back and watch, which is what Arsenal have had, what City have had the luxury of doing today. But Arsenal have sent the perfect message tonight. City at home tonight, they've won. Okay, let's go again. So what City will be looking towards next week is a really difficult game away at Leeds on the Saturday, that they go and do it again, and then Arsenal play Chelsea on the Sunday. Now Arsenal have got to go and do it again if obviously City do that, but playing first I think is a big advantage if you can go and get the points on the board, and that's what I think Pep Guardiola will be looking at right now. There's too much to go on. There's Champions League games, there's Carabao Cup finals before that game into the distance. We're talking about it purely because we know it's coming and it's looming and it won't go away, but the managers and the players in the dressing room won't be focusing on that at all. Both sets of players will recognise that they've got this league in their own hands, which is a good place to be. They both have. You have to win all the games, you win the league. That's it. That's what Sir Alex Ferguson would have said to us back in the day. By the way, it's in your hands. If you win every game, you win the league. And so they'll feel good about that in the City dressing room, but Arsenal will feel good about that as well, that they're in a good position. So long way to go. A lot of injuries to happen, a lot of losses to happen. You've got Champions League potentially, joy or defeats to deal with. You've got that Carabao Cup game, which will again bring joy or unhappiness to a certain dressing room. So there's a lot to play for. I love this point in the season. I love it when there's a title race. There's nothing worse when you sort of see a season peter out. Last season it seemed to peter out. All ends up, didn't it? The relegation was sorted, the title was sorted, the Champions League places felt like they were mainly sorted sort of well before the end of the season. I don't think we're going to get that this year. I think we're going to get a bit of a blockbuster, and it's going to, I think, be exciting. The Champions League, I'll cover that tomorrow night after the Everton United game, and what Liverpool have done in the last minute today. Burnley getting a point at Chelsea. These things, Villa just wobbling a little bit, aren't they, at the moment, but they've got injuries. So much to play for, so much, I think, at stake. But I think it's going to go to the death this year. I don't think it's going to be a case of it being sorted with 3-4 weeks to go, and that'll be exciting.
You give me butterflies, Gary.
Thanks, Peter.
Well done, thank you.
Arsenal's internal shakeup continues, and the latest departure signals that the restructuring behind the scenes is far from over. James Ellis has stepped down from his role as technical director just 7 months after being promoted. According to BBC Sport, Ellis, who only took on the position last August after serving as head of recruitment, has now left the club amid what appears to be a wider internal overhaul. His exit doesn't come in isolation. In December, Arsenal appointed former Napoli executive Maurizio Micheli to a senior recruitment role, a move widely seen as part of the club's long-term structural reset. Just months earlier, Andrea Berta had been confirmed as sporting director, effectively replacing Edu Gaspar. That appointment alone signaled a new era. Now, with Ellis gone, the transformation feels even more deliberate. Ellis joins Edu and former CEO Vini Venkatesham among high-profile departures from the Emirates hierarchy. Both Edu and Venkatesham moved on to new roles. Edu taking on a global director of football position at Nottingham Forest, and Venkatesham joining Tottenham. However, neither situation appears entirely stable. Edu's time at the City Ground has reportedly been turbulent. Nottingham Forest's dramatic drop in form since his arrival has raised serious questions about the project's direction, and indications suggest his tenure there may not last much longer. Meanwhile, at Tottenham, Venkatesham has come under intense scrutiny from Spurs supporters, particularly for his initial backing and continued support of Thomas Frank, even as results and performances deteriorated from December onward. Eventually, Igor Tudor was appointed interim manager, and his first match in charge came in the most demanding fixture possible, the North London derby against Arsenal. Despite having just 7 days in the job, the 47-year-old Tudor understands the magnitude of the occasion and the adversity he's facing. "We trained with 13 players," Tudor admitted. "That's the reality. It's not ideal, but in moments like this, the challenge becomes even greater. And so does the opportunity to succeed." He added confidently, "We will have 13 players ready, and that's more than enough to achieve what we want on Sunday. I understand the importance of this match. It's a North London derby. Everyone expects 3 points from us. We are aware of that." Arsenal, however, arrive at the derby carrying frustration of their own. Consecutive draws against Wolves and Brentford have slowed their momentum, and Mikel Arteta made it clear there could not be a better fixture to respond. "It's the next game, and it's the one we're most excited to play," Arteta said. "If we could play today, we would. We have to use that feeling in our stomach the right way, and show it on Sunday." There are also selection decisions looming. Despite Eberechi Eze scoring 3 times in the reverse fixture, his place in midfield is no longer guaranteed. Competition has intensified, particularly after positive fitness updates on Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard, both capable of operating in similar roles. "We'll have to wait until tomorrow," Arteta said cautiously. "But there's a strong possibility that both of them will be available." With tension rising both on and off the pitch, this derby feels bigger than usual. Arsenal are reshaping their leadership structure. Tottenham are battling instability, and both clubs are searching for momentum at a crucial stage of the season. Sunday won't just be about 3 points. It's about direction, identity, and control in North London. The broader picture, however, stretches beyond one derby or one boardroom exit. What is unfolding at Arsenal is a defining phase, a moment where structural decisions off the pitch could shape the club's competitiveness for years to come. The departure of James Ellis raises natural questions about continuity and recruitment strategy. Arsenal have invested heavily in building a data-driven, modern scouting network over the past few seasons. Under Mikel Arteta's leadership, recruitment has largely aligned with a clear footballing identity: younger profiles, tactical intelligence, technical security, and long-term resale value. Now, with Maurizio Micheli and Andrea Berta positioned as key figures, the club appears to be centralizing authority even further. For supporters, the concern isn't necessarily change, it's instability. Frequent turnover at executive level can create uncertainty during crucial transfer windows. With the summer approaching and expectations growing after consecutive near-title pushes, Arsenal cannot afford missteps in squad planning. Rivals are strengthening. Margins are thin. Every decision matters. On the pitch, the North London derby carries added psychological weight. Arsenal's recent draws against Wolves and Brentford weren't just dropped points. They dented momentum at a critical juncture of the season. Title races are often defined by response, how quickly a team reacts after disappointment. Arteta understands that narrative. Privately, there is belief within the squad that performances have not dipped as sharply as results suggest. Arsenal have maintained strong possession metrics, defensive structure, and chance creation numbers in recent matches. The issue has been efficiency, converting control into decisive moments. Against Tottenham, that margin for waste disappears. For Spurs, the situation feels even more volatile. Igor Tudor's interim appointment reflects urgency rather than long-term planning. Training sessions with limited numbers underline the squad's injury struggles, and depth will be tested against one of the league's most organized sides. Yet derby matches rarely follow logic. Emotional intensity often overrides tactical predictability. Another layer to the story is the competitive landscape at the top of the table. With Manchester City and Liverpool maintaining relentless standards, any slip can reshape the standings instantly. Arsenal know that draws at this stage can feel as damaging as defeats. The pressure is no longer about proving progress. It's about delivering silverware. Internally, Arteta's message has reportedly been direct. block out external noise. The boardroom reshuffle, media speculation, and scrutiny around player selection cannot bleed into matchday focus. Leadership inside the dressing room, particularly from senior figures, becomes crucial in moments like this. There is also anticipation around the possible return of Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard. Their availability would not only boost tactical flexibility, but also restore leadership and composure in key phases of play. If both are fit, Arteta faces a selection dilemma, but one he would welcome. In North London, perception shifts quickly. One result can calm doubts or intensify them. A victory would reassert Arsenal's authority, silence questions about momentum, and reinforce belief in the current project despite executive turnover. A setback, however, would amplify concerns about consistency at the worst possible time. Ultimately, this is a convergence of narratives, structural change, title ambition, squad depth challenges, and historic rivalry. The derby will not define the entire season, but it will send a message. And right now, both clubs are desperate to control that message.